Hey, what's up, guys? It's Foster from English no Cru. As you probably know, we are taking a quick break from recording new episodes of English no Cru Rádio because we are focusing all of our time and energy on Sound School. Sound School is our pronunciation and conversation course. It is a conversation masterclass. If you like this show and you are serious about taking your English to the next level, Sound School is the place to be. Because we work personally with each one of our students, we can only accept a limited number of students at a time. So if you're interested in really speaking more confidently, improving your accent, understanding native speakers, and all of that other cool stuff, go to inglesnocru.com to start working personally with me and Alexia. Okay, we will get on with the show after a quick word from our sponsors. Hey, Alexia.
Hey, Foster.
Think about all of the cool stuff you could do in 15 minutes.
Uh-huh.
In 15 minutes, you could run 2 miles.
No.
In 30 minutes, you could walk very fast,
Yes.
maybe.
Yes.
Or you could take a free class with Cambly.
That's true.
Yeah. Tell us about Cambly.
Cambly é uma plataforma online de inglês. Sim, vocês já sabem isso, vocês têm escutado isso todos os dias e eu não sei por que você ainda não foi ter sua aula de graça com o Cambly. Cambly e Inglês de Unicru se juntaram e estão te dando uma aula de graça de inglês. Você vai lá no site cambly.com ou no aplicativo Cambly, no Android, no iOS, qualquer tipo de telefone que você tenha, se inscreva e coloque o cupom Inglês no e cru. E desse jeito você vai ter uma aula de graça. Eu já estou recebendo feedback de pessoas que já fizeram, estão amando e disseram que vão continuar. Então é assim, qualquer nativo de qualquer região, com qualquer sotaque, sobre qualquer especialidade, sobre qualquer coisa que você queira
Alexia,
falar.
there are a lot of cats coming our way.
Gente, são bebês! Oi!
Oh, meu Deus. Okay, Cambly.com. We are getting attacked by cats. On with the show. Oi, fala aí, pessoal. Bom dia. Você está escutando o Inglês no Rádio. I am your host, Foster Hodge. This is your daily dose of English.
I find it hard to separate students and friends because so many times I will just end up talking with the students about life, and we'll try and do it in English so they're practicing. And I want to be their friend, but I don't know if it's just an American standard. Like, I shouldn't be their friend if they're my student because they're technically a client. But I want to be their friend. It's a weird mental block that I have.
Yeah, it's a sticky situation. I find myself in that situation a lot where, on one hand, I'm playing the part of English teacher. On another hand, I'm playing the part of like the friendly American that they can have conversations with. There's a huge psychological element to language learning, and a lot of the barriers you have to overcome. I think just like having a friendly person to talk to help you overcome those obstacles. So a lot of it's kind of like being like a life coach, therapist type person, which I'm not
Exactly.
qualified to do at all. I don't know. Do you have that same kind of feeling?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, it's even more so when I have students who actually live in the United States because it's always the same questions. And you would think like, oh, I'd get tired of that. But I think as I see more people going through the same situation of I'm far from my family, I don't, have 100% understanding of the language. They want help with a lot of different things, and because it is a lot to handle, and I'm able to provide answers for a lot of those. But at the same time, I always preface it with, this is just my experience. Don't follow my advice 100%. I'm just giving you what I think from my experience or my English knowledge, but it's definitely more than just this is how you say the numbers, this is the colors, it's so much more.
Do you have any examples of some of those common questions that a lot of Brazilians in the US are asking? Just because recently I've had, I guess, 4 or 5 kind of long-term students of mine move to the US, and I'm getting a wide range of questions, and I have to give this disclaimer with all of my answers too, like, "This is just me, this might sound crazy, this is my experience." And I don't know if I'm providing useful information or just like stupid answers to difficult questions.
We'll start with the sort of lighter things, I guess, are how do you order coffee? Or my client texts me this and I see this all the time. How do I answer this in the most polite way? And there are some people, some students who have learned, for example, if they want to order coffee, they say, I would like a coffee. And I say, oh, well, you can say, can I get? And they're like, well, which one's right? Which one's correct? Like there is no correct one. I feel like those are the worst answers to give to is like, there's no right answer. So that's one problem
Exactly.
that when it comes to English. But with more life questions, it's plenty of students who have just talked about, I'll ask them questions about the past just to practice the past tense. And then we'll get into things like how do you send a package to Brazil, or how do you send money, or what can I do about my visa? And it's heartbreaking, honestly, because there are people who don't have either the financial or just legal means to go see their family, and they feel super alone because it's not just that that they don't have fluent English, but even if they do, it's hard to make friends and they're far from their family. And a lot of my students now, they don't even care what we do in class. They just want to talk. They just want to have someone there.
It's a weird sense of responsibility placed on English teachers sometimes,
Yeah,
where it's like, you should probably be speaking to an attorney or a therapist about these things.
exactly. People think English teachers, they think of whiteboard to be, they don't think tissues and crying and legal documents. And since I've gone through the situation myself of trying to immigrate to Brazil, I've been like banned from Brazil before. I really can understand where they're coming from. Maybe not even 100% because family in Brazil is so much closer. So they must be feeling even worse than I do away from my family. But I can at least is it sympathize or empathize?
Yeah, I'm never sure about the difference between those 2.
I can I can kind of understand what they feel. I guess I'll put it in that, so I don't use the wrong word.
Yeah, 2 English teachers that don't know the definition of, like, very common English words.
To be fair, actually speaking of that, a lot of people when I don't know a word, they'll be like, "Well, what do you mean you don't know the word?" Like, and then they'll go back into like, "Oh, well, you must not be American."
Like the example you were talking about someone ordering coffee, I was thinking about that in my head, and I'm pretty sure that when I order any drink in the US, I say, "Could I get?" Which grammatically is probably incorrect to most language teachers, and my students will have the same reaction, like, "Could I get? So is that what I should say?" I'm like, that's what I say, but it's probably weird to some people."
Right. Like if a student asked me, like, I learned could I get, is that correct? I'd be like, yeah, it's not what I use, but that's totally, in fact, it's probably even better than can I get, because could I get is, I guess you consider that more polite.
I don't know if I want to say a lot of my students have the tendency to ask bad questions, but I get the feeling a lot of times that they're not asking the most important questions. Like the difference between can I get and could I get probably should not be on the top of your list. You know, if you're living in the US trying to make friends and a life in the US, you have bigger fish to fry.
Exactly. But I think that's also where the role of kind of the same thing a therapist does comes into play, because therapists, they don't always have the answers, but they know what questions they should be asking you to help you get to your answer.
Yep.
And so I see that with students, like they'll ask a lot of questions with why, and those end up not being. Yeah, you're right. It's not a bad question, but it's not priority. I can explain to you why we need to put do in front of a question, but I normally just tend to tell students like, oh, it's just like another question mark.
Yeah. I mean, there's no such thing as a bad question. As teachers, we have to say that.
Hmm.
But learning any new language and becoming part of a new culture, you do have to prioritize certain things and just not pay attention to other things that you maybe think are important in the beginning, but they're probably things you don't need to worry about until like 10 years down the road.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe you could use your experience of using Portuguese as a language teacher and as someone that's good with languages. Could you just give some of the highlights of like what you decided to prioritize or some bullet points of how you learn Portuguese successfully and relatively quickly?
A lot of it is not trying to compare with English, or just not comparing one language to another. Because I have so many times where I would ask, or I would say, like, oh, but in English we do this. Or I have students that say, ah, but in Portuguese we do this. That's great. You keep doing your thing in your language, but in this language, it's different. And it sounds really rude sometimes. And I always tell the students, like, I don't want to be rude, but that's just the way it is. And if you accept certain things, like the fact that we say blue car and not car blue, it's just going to be easier. Don't ask why, because even then I can't tell you. Also,
Yeah.
avoiding grammar. I love grammar, for example. I'm a nerd, but I think if you spend all this time trying to identify what the simple present is compared to the present perfect, and then compare that to the usage of the simple past, you're not going to have a good time. I never introduce that. I say, like, we're going to talk about today, we're going to talk about yesterday. Now I'm going to ask you if you've done something in your life. So I'm going to say, have you ever? So I almost never say present perfect. I say, have you ever questions.
Yeah. I generally try to say, like, stay away from grammar, avoid grammar until you absolutely need to understand something.
Hmm.
For example, I suppose it would be the future perfect tense in Portuguese, like se eu quiser fazer alguma coisa. I don't understand why people do that in Portuguese. I don't really fully understand what it means most of the time, but I know how to use it and I know how to get around with it. And in my experience, I've kind of found that's enough. Like, I don't need to understand everything about the language. And it's my job to understand most things about the language.
Exactly.
So,
People think that learning English is a completable process, and it's not, because English isn't even a set idea. Because there are words that enter our vocabulary, there are words that we don't use anymore. If people think, oh, I'm going to learn English the same way I can make a cake, for example, you can finish the cake, but you're not going to finish English. There's just going to be a point where you say, oh, I think that's enough. That's really all I need. And the same way with grammar. If you have, I like to compare grammar to a map of a city. Don't really know what a map of my city looks like, but I can get around. So grammar is the same way. A map will really help you if you know how to read it. But a lot of times you don't need a map to get around.
yeah. And with Google Maps nowadays, you don't even. I think that's really good advice. The idea of fluency being something achievable and completable is a fallacy that I see a lot of my students fall into. There will never be a day when I just wake up and say, like, yep, Portuguese, check that one off the
I
list.
always use that example, just waking up and being fluent. I tell my students that, and they're like, "No, but you don't understand." I'm like, "But I'm trying to like be in your situation."
Yeah. And I think a lot of students don't realize, like, I've been, learning Portuguese off and on for maybe almost 4 years now. And I still have days where I wake up and I'm like, shit,
Mhm.
hoje não posso falar não. Just não consigo. And just like Portuguese does not come out of my mouth correctly some days. And that's part of the game.
Yeah, it's people want to blame themselves sometimes. They'll forget a word in English. They're like, oh my God, like it's such a basic word. How am I forgetting? I forget names. I forget words in English, and that's my native language. So if I get a pass, you get a pass too. They just start blaming themselves when they feel like their vocabulary or their grammar doesn't match with the level that they've been told they are. And that's why I don't even like giving people levels. Like, oh, do you think I'm an intermediate or advanced? No, I think you are Robert and that your English is very good. That's it. Don't identify with these levels.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of people, the idea of like would you consider me intermediate or advanced? Because I did the high intermediate lesson at like Waizapi and I completed that, but I'm not sure if I would consider myself advanced yet. My God, just calm down. I would just consider you the person that's talking to me right now, and I can understand you. We're having a conversation. That's cool. That's where you are.
It's sort of a similar way how Americans will be like, oh, well, I'm 50% Italian and 25% this. And then Brazilians will just be like, oh, I'm Brazilian. Like maybe my family's from another country, but I'm Brazilian. Just bringing that mindset over to your English. You're an English student, and that's it. You don't have to be have these labels that even learning the labels is complicated because I don't know what
Yeah,
C1 and C2 are. Which one is different? Apparently, C2 is better than C1, or C1 is better than C2. That's it. Yeah, I don't know.
I remember the only time I actually did that European framework was when I was living in Madrid. I did that for my Spanish, and at the time I was a C1 in Spanish. And like nowadays, if you if I have to speak Spanish on the spot, probably just gonna speak Portuguese to you. So I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
So I think you gave a few pieces of really good advice. First of all, is try to focus on what your highest priority is right now. Think about more important questions. Secondly, don't worry about grammar until you kind of need to. And when you do, learn through example, learn by doing. And then third, kind of the idea of take it easy on yourself. Don't be so hard on yourself. I think those are all really good pieces of advice. But especially with the last one, I run into this a lot where I say, like, take it easy. You speak really well. But at the same time, I'm like, if you really want to improve, you're going to have to like do a lot of work, like practice every day and have conversations with people all the time. And kind of that contradiction of go easy on yourself, but also work really hard. I never really know where to go on that direction. If you have any recommendations or insight, they would be much appreciated.
um, I love analogies. So I guess the going easy on yourself is a lot of times for small mistakes. Someone says was instead of were, or they forget a word that they think is basic. You have someone, for example, training for a marathon. They run miles every day. That's what you should be doing. They trip and fall. Okay, they tie their shoelace. They're not going to give up on the marathon or think that they can't run a certain distance because they tripped and fell. Really tie your shoe, get up, keep going. I don't know if it's even tough love. It's just you can do it. Like, don't worry about the mistakes.
It's kind of the idea of like, yeah, just keep your head down and push through it. Because if you keep working every day, you don't have to like have this idea of self-loathing or self-hatred. You'll be fine. You know,
Hmm.
it, the process will work itself out with time.
I think taking the labels off also helps with not being so hard on yourself because people will say, oh, how can I be C1 if I mess up this word? Of course you can. I don't get considered all of a sudden a non-native speaker when I forget the word tree, which I do all the time. I don't know why the word tree escapes me so much, but it's a simple word, it's a basic thing, but I'm not going to beat myself up over it.
Yeah, exactly. So, Anthony, you've imparted a lot of great wisdom, per usual. I feel like normally when we talk, we can kind of get into this esoteric, like teacher mindset. No one understands us, which is definitely true. But I would like to leave people on a semi positive note. Do you have any examples of maybe your students living in Boston or just like successful students? Do you see any commonalities or any trends or kind of things that your success stories have had in common that other students could apply to their own stories?
Definitely. I think one of the problems with people, not with people, but the problems that people have when they study.
Problems with humanity.
That's a whole other. One of the problems people have in Boston, I can't really say for other places, but Boston has so many Brazilians, and there are so many resources and supermarkets and stores that you can just speak Portuguese and you don't need to use your English. So people get really comfortable. A lot of my students who just go to a different supermarket or have done something in their routine to add English, it really helps a lot. Even if it's even if it's just English class, That helps. But I think having something in your daily life, switching your phone to English, there will be words that you don't even realize you're learning. Sticking with it too, just continuing, even when it doesn't seem fun or when it's not always something you find super interesting. After 3 months, you can look back and see a difference. People expect these instant results, and you can learn a word instantly. I can learn the word for tree in Portuguese instantly, but
Mhm.
I won't be able to say that my Portuguese improved with just that one word. So it's people always ask, oh, how long until I see results or until I have English that's good enough? And I say if you wait 3 months, you can definitely see a difference. Every week there's going to be a difference, but I think 3 months is a good time frame.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I mean, there's a reason that most like major businesses and corporations in the world are based on like quarterly results. It's because 90 days is like a pretty good period of time where it's not too long, but you can definitely make a lot of progress in that time.
Mhm.
I agree with that. Yeah, one thing I think a lot of my successful students do that you're definitely hitting on is they have all been studying and talking to people and having different experiences for a pretty long time. You know, it might be they've been studying English their entire life or for like 5 years or every day for 2 years, but they've been doing something for a good chunk of time. That is a common thing I see with all my successful
Mhm.
students.
Something that helps people maintain interest is don't focus on English. If you don't like grammar, if you don't like studying English, right, don't study English. Study something else, do something else in English, play soccer in English, or watch the game in English, or take a photography class online in English. If learning languages isn't what's fun for you and something you can really commit to, don't try and change yourself as a person and learn a language and do this because that's too much. Find something you like in English, and that'll help.
Exactly. I mean, I think you and I have the benefit of kind of being language nerds, and that helps that we like playing around with words and understanding how they work and how sentences fit together and we make new phrases and expressions.
Definitely.
Most people don't like that,
Hmm.
you know? So just do not follow the teacher's example a lot of times, I think is good advice coming from a teacher.
Mm. Also, with teachers, I should add that I have students who are like, "Oh, I follow this. I follow you on Facebook or Instagram," and I'll say, "Okay, who else?" Because if you just hear my English, you can understand me really well, but other people don't have the same English as me. So expanding what you hear is always really good too. Hearing different people speak and use the same words.
Yeah, something I'm really trying to encourage my most of my students to do nowadays is like people that listen to this show, if you can understand Anthony and I speaking right now, you should probably also be listening to podcasts designed for native speakers. Like you should be out of people talking about learning English and kind of get into people just talking about whatever it is you're interested in, whether that be photography or sports or whatever. Um, Trying to make that push towards native material as fast as possible.
Definitely.
Yeah. So, Anthony, we've been talking for almost an hour, so I'll let you go. I don't want to take up too much of your time.
I do have a nap
I
scheduled.
would,
No, I'm kidding.
I know you're busy. The life of an English teacher is not easy. I would recommend everyone to at least follow you on Facebook because something that I've always really appreciated that you do really well is you don't have any like fluff material. I would say, like, every time I see a video of you, you're teaching something where I'm like, huh, he explained that in, 2 minutes. That would have taken me a lot longer. That was pretty good. There's a lot of time and effort into that 2-minute video, I imagine. I don't know. I watch a lot of YouTube videos of English teachers and I'm like, what was that video about?
Gotcha.
And I don't get that with you at
Oh,
all.
thank you. I'm
So,
definitely I'm impatient as a person, and that comes to English teaching too. Like I don't. People also don't have time to be watching my videos. I don't have time to watch my own videos, so I'm gonna make something that I would be able to watch with my weird schedule.
yeah, time is of the essence for everyone. Cool. So, Anthony, do you have any parting words or a particular place that you would prefer people to find you on the interwebs?
As far as parting words, I'd say definitely thanks for having me. And I'm going to try and do something to have you appear on my page too. I just don't know where.
Yeah, I'll go on the Gringo Lingo
Ah.
at YouTube and then get on the Gringo Lingo
We actually got
podcast.
the only URL link for YouTube, which has just Gringo Lingo, no BR. So it's youtube.com/Gringo Lingo. But I do not have much posted there yet. I think Instagram is where we're most active, and that's at gringolingo.br. But Facebook and Instagram are linked, so both are where I would be found.
Nice. And we will link up to that. I'm sure most Brazilians by now understand how to use Instagram and Facebook at least much better than
Oh
we
yeah,
do.
for sure, more than we do.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Anthony, I appreciate it. It's always a pleasure. Thanks for being the first repeat guest, and I'm sure you will probably be the first trepeat.
Repeat.
Yes,
I like both.
repeat. Oh yeah, three-peat. Well, I'm looking forward to
I
that.
am as well.
Cool. So, Anthony, thanks again, and we'll try to get you back on the show soon.
Definitely. Thanks for having me.
Hey guys, thanks so much for listening to another episode of Inglês no Cru Rádio. If you like what we do, if you want to support the show, here's what you can do. Leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Android, wherever you listen to the podcast. It really helps other people discover the show. And you can sign up for our VIP newsletter. So each time we release new courses, early discounts for Sound School, new worksheets, special discounts, the people on our newsletter are the first to know. So if you are interested in the things we are doing, go to inglesnucru.com and sign up. And as always, keep up the good fight and lose well. Até já.